Welcome to the Scalera Show. Thank you for joining me today. If we had to talk about one issue that unites the country in all this division over the last, actually, I was going to say several years, but really it's been the last 20 years. The one thing we can all agree on is term limits. Everybody is sick and tired of the same old crap in Washington. And I was thinking about what I should do on this video. I've been thinking about term limits because nobody ever talks about it. It's something that we all agree on, but the mainstream media never seems to want to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it today. I was looking at a poll. There's not a lot of polls out there about this, but there was a poll in 2018, in January 2018, by the McLaughlin and Associates group, and it found that 82% of every single person that they polled wanted congressional term limits. 89% of Republicans, 76% of Democrats, and 83% of independents. And you'll see this is going to be an ongoing theme where the Republicans seem to be polling a lot higher on the subject than Democrats. I'm not exactly sure why. Because there's a lot of establishment Republicans, just like there's a lot of establishment Democrats. So who knows? So in order to have government work the way we want it to work, you gotta light a fire under their butts, right? They gotta come into the job and they want to change things. They want to make a difference. If you know you're in a district and you know you're going to keep winning and you're there 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you're looking forward to retirement, it's the same old crap, and you're going to want to do the same old crap, and it doesn't matter if things change or not, you're still getting paid, you're still sitting on a sweet pension, and nothing's ever going to change. I think if the media talked about term limits and made a bigger deal out of it, because I know a lot of people were talking about it at the beginning of the Trump administration, when they had problems with Congress, the whole 9 yards. A lot of Republicans were like, man, we need term limits. And then there were articles written about it, and now you never see it anymore. But if it became an issue, I think that candidates, if a candidate actually raised this issue and ran on it, they might actually be able to win, because in the same poll, it showed that 73% of everybody that they polled would favor a candidate supporting term limits. 80% of Republicans, only 64% of Democrats, which is lower than I thought, but I mean, it's still a majority, and 77% of independents. Now, it's going to be interesting to note that of the Democrat candidates running for president this time around, you got a lot of establishment people in there. Even people like Bernie Sanders who aren't in or who aren't cozy with the establishment. They've still been in office forever, right? Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren, all three of them oppose term limits. And you know why? Because they've been there forever. You know, same old crap, nice, sweet little gig. They don't want to give that up. But it's interesting. Now, no matter who wins, because you know it's either going to be Biden or Bernie at this point that's going to get the nomination, the only person in the 2020 general election that actually supports congressional term limits is actually President Trump. While it doesn't matter who he's facing, Bernie or Biden, they oppose congressional term limits. So that's interesting. You hear the media, oh, Trump's such a this, Trump's no good. Actually, that's an issue that Trump supports, that the vast majority of all Americans actually do support. And he actually tweeted about it a couple of years ago and actually had a meeting with a bunch of freshman congressmen who also supports congressional term limits. Now, if you want to drain the swamp like he's been talking about, really the only way you can possibly do it is to keep getting an influx of new people wanting to make a difference in Washington. It's not just Washington, it's state elections, it's local elections, it's the same old people running the same old scam on the American people, and you'll wonder why nothing ever changes, because it's the same old people running the establishment. For example, when I was in politics, in local politics, it's so hard to actually be able to run for office. Now, I know every state is different, but here in New York, it's so much more of a pain. Because not only do you have to, let's say that there's an open spot, an open congressional spot open, and there are several other people running, and you want to run. Well, the establishment, let's say you want to run for a Democrat office, the Democrat Party already has a candidate in mind. You know, they're already most likely backing people. So when you go into the interviews and you're explaining to them what your plan is, and they're listening to you, and you're like, oh, maybe I got a shot. You do not have a shot. Okay? The only way for you to actually be able to win is to have money, which most people don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to buy bumper stickers and do marketing and advertising and signs and the whole 9 yards. And then the amount of time it takes to actually have petitions. You have to go out door to door. Sometimes you might need thousands of signatures to go out to thousands of homes and ask people if they'll support you for office. And if these people are, let's say, registered Democrats, and they're, they know somebody who's in the party, most people in the party are saying, don't sign that petition. We're voting for this person because this is what the Democrat Party wants, not that person. So it becomes a lot harder to actually get signatures on a petition. It's a ton of work. And then who do you think works at the Board of Elections? Who's in charge of making sure all the petitions are correct? The Republican and Democrat parties. They have people who work at the Board of Elections, and when you hand in your petition, let's say you needed 1,000 signatures, and you got 1,000 signatures, and you worked months to get it, and you killed yourself. You hand it in, and they can simply say, well, this is wrong, or that's wrong, or you made this mistake, or that mistake. It's so corrupt. And instead of ending up with 1,000 petitions and able to get your name on the ballot, you end up with 900 signatures or 950 signatures, which ain't going to cut it, which means you're not going to be on the ballot. The entire system is completely set up for the person that the established party wants to be into office. If you are not that person, the odds of you being able to beat somebody that's backed by one of the two parties is almost nilch. Now look at these election rates. I was on Ballotpedia and I found a really interesting couple graphs and a picture of the country that will show you how high the re-election rates are for members of Congress, Senate, and the Assembly. Really in the last 20, 30 years for the Senate, between 80 and 90% re-election rate. And remember, that's a 6-year term. And then for the Assembly, the re-election rate is actually in the 90s. Actually, it's not uncommon to see 93, 96, 98% re-election rate. I mean, these people don't even have to run a campaign to actually get into office. People are just voting for them because they either have an R or a D next to their name. And that's good enough for them, no matter how good of a job or bad of a job that they're actually doing. So the only way to actually solve this problem of not getting anything done in Washington, and it's not the president's fault. He's got 1, 2 terms, 4 or 8 years. That's it. So a lot of times you see a president come in, a lot of times you see they want to get something done. You've seen Trump wanting to get something done, really trying to pressure, and even though he had a Republican Congress, Senate, and the Assembly, it was still tough because you have all these people who want power and want to be famous and want to put in their 2 cents instead of basically adhering to the will of the people. I mean, they voted Trump in for a very specific reason, but there were members of Congress who just weren't on board with that. So what you'll see is if you actually were able to vote in somebody new, let's say congressional assemblymen only were allowed 2 terms, so then every 4 years you'll get a new assemblyman. You'll get people in who have that fire. You know, when you start a new job and you're like, man, I can't wait to do the best job I can do. Yeah, I'm going to kill it, the whole 9 yards. You're motivated. We need more people like that in office, and less people like the people that we have now who are just used to the status quo. They know nothing's going to change and nothing ever does. And we wonder why We wonder why nothing ever gets done. It's our fault. We're the ones that allow them to have as many terms as they want. People should not be dying in office. So you gotta have people who are hungry, people who want change, people who are dreaming of ways to make the country a better place to live. So let me know what you think. Comment, subscribe. I got a lot of content coming out. We're only a few days away from Iowa. I'm going to make my prediction later in the week. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button and please subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.